So super excited to be here, guys, to talk to you about my favorite topic, content marketing. And so my wife's here. She's sitting in the front there taking pictures and things. We'll probably escape right after this to go play some poker or blackjack or something. But I realized last night just kind of how nerdy we all are. Like, she was with me. I went to the party, and I was just immediately felt like I was in my element. It's my first time at this event, but it's been an honor to be around so many smart people. And I think I was talking to a guy last night, and he was like, I was like, so yeah, what are you up to, man? He's like, well, I do some development on Woo. And I was like, okay, like, you do anything on Shopify, or like, what about Magento? And he's like, well, you know, I don't have, my clients don't have that many SKUs. And him and I are just going back and forth, speaking essentially a foreign language to each other, because I look over at my wife and she's like this. You know, and I'm like, I realized last night just how, you know, the language that we've all sort of developed around this is such a cool place for everybody to gather and just talk about stuff that, you know, our spouses and our friends and our families are like, dude, just shut up about this stuff. So I'm super pumped to be talking about content marketing. So back in 2004, I was working doing direct mail for a book company. We sent out book catalogs, and we would send out hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of catalogs. And I started catching wind of like, hey, it's just like this internet thing looks like it's for real, right? I started looking at the web as another angle for me to be learning as a marketer. And the guy who owned the company calls me and he goes, hey, Russ, like, I'm looking here at the internet and I'm typing in the things we sell and stuff like that. Like, why is my company not coming up? And all my competitors coming up? I was like, I have no idea. Like, why are you asking me this question? Like, I'm doing catalogs and direct mail over here. I said, why don't you ask the IT guy? It sounds like an IT question to me. No, Russ. I want you to figure this out. And from that point, I got up. I said, you got it. I'll go look into it. So I go back to my desk. I sit down, and wow. I haven't looked back. The digital scene for me is where it's at. So much more exciting than the direct mail stuff that I was doing. But I learned all about search and pay-per-click, and eventually started to go back to the boss and say, hey man, like, here's the thing, like, we don't have any title tags, and we don't have any meta descriptions, and we need pages about this and this and this. And he's like, well, all right, like, let's start doing that. And I got so into it, and have since moved on. I went and managed about 30 SEO developers at Network Solutions, and then moved on to manage the content strategy for Crazy Egg, which is Neil Patel and Heat Shaw's company. Went on from there and worked with Salesforce.com doing content marketing, and now work for digitalmarketer.com. We just acquired a software as a service called True Conversion, and we have things that we very much consider to be software as a service in terms of our products. And I'm going to share with you today content marketing as it really works in any market, but with a really specific spin on software and startup software companies. So the presentation is called The Perfect Content Strategy. It sounds like hype, but I am going to show you 6 characteristics of a perfect strategy. Again, my name's Russ. You can tweet me at Russ Henneberry, or you can tweet the brand at Digital Marketer. But we're going to work today on improving your batting average. Because the biggest complaint about content marketing is that I write and I swing and I strike out, right? It's like, man, is this worth my time? Something that, you know, I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, but I don't think I've ever spoken to a group that is more time-starved than a set of startup founders, right? Like, where you are just super starved for time. And so what you really want to work on, I'm from St. Louis, and he's one of my favorite players. you have to love baseball if you're from St. Louis, or they escort you to the edge of the city and you get excommunicated. But I want you, what I'm looking to do today is to get so that you feel confident executing a content strategy and being able to swing and connect. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is pretty shortly after that dude called me in and said, why am I not ranking for all these things? I pretty quickly realized that it wasn't just about the title tags and the meta descriptions and this and that. That's all sort of hocus pocus stuff that today is pretty much table stakes. Like if you're not doing some on-page search and stuff like that on your site. But I quickly realized it's about content, right? It's about actually putting something on your site. Just kind of like what we were talking about in the last session, having a product that deserves to win, essentially. Like having something good. And so I realized this is about content. But then I went all the way the other direction. Like I started holding hands with all the other content marketers and singing Kumbaya about how all you had to do is create great content and everything's going to work out. You're going to get leads, you're going to get sales, you're going to get puppy dogs, rainbows, and ice cream. But I realized pretty quickly after that it actually doesn't work that way either. So I went way too far to the other side where it was just like, this is about just creating tremendous value. That's it. Create value and you win. That's not true either. I'm here to tell you, I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out and present to you all that I've learned about how to connect content with leads and sales. So what most people are doing is they're missing the ball when they create content, whether that's a blog post or a podcast or a video or whatever. And what they do generally with their content marketing is they're just like, well, let's just create content. Like that's what it means a lot of times for people to go and execute content, right? They're like, well, I think this year we should do content marketing. And it's like, well, what's that mean? Well, that means we're going to open up a blog or a podcast or a YouTube channel. We're just going to start producing awesome stuff. And that is a gigantic mistake. Huge waste of time. You'll connect on a few things, but the ROI will be very sketchy. Like you might win, you might not. I'm going to teach you how to, again, increase that batting average, the chances of you winning at this game, because it is a very, very powerful game. So in this training, we're going to cover 6 characteristics of perfect content marketing and how to execute it. At the end, I'm going to give you a template that I use and my teams use to actually execute content marketing the way I'm going to teach it to you today. The first characteristic of content marketing that is perfect is that it is full funnel. There is content that is utilized at all stages of the funnel. So what do I mean by that? The thing is that there's a big misconception, and I actually ran into this last night, where I was talking to a gentleman, and he said, yeah, I said, are you doing any content marketing? Yeah, we got a blog. But that's not content marketing. So this is a myth that content marketing is blogging, okay? This is not accurate. Content marketing is not blogging. Blogging is a sort of important part of a good content strategy. I've rarely ran into a business that couldn't benefit from having a business blog, but they're not synonyms, okay? That blogging is a piece of a good content strategy. So what I want to show you today, this is probably the first of a few different things that I want you to start learning some language around at least how we at Digital Marketer talk about content marketing. So we consider content at all stages of the funnel. So let's take a look at what that might look like, what does look like for any business, really. You've got, and I've kind of tilted this funnel to the side so it was nice and big and people in the back could see it. But you've got aware, evaluate, convert, and commit. Okay, so this is a pretty standard marketing funnel here. Let me get my little fancy thing, where you got somebody out here at the aware stage. They don't even know who you are. They don't know there's an app for that, right? They don't know there's software for that. And then they realize, oh, you do have this solution. And so you become part of what in this space, this is not a something that somebody just kind of grabs like a stick of gum off of an impulse buy. People are going to shop around the different competitors that you have in your space. So they're going to go through an evaluation stage. I can choose you, I could choose your competitor, or I could choose to do nothing, right? Which is a major competitor, to choose to just not address the problem. And then you get to them at point of sale, out here in the convert stage. But then, of course, we all know, and probably more than anybody, people that are in software know that you got to get that commit stage right, where after the purchase, you get people to commit to your product, use it, get value from it, right? Consumption of your product, so or the value that you're giving. So you may have heard these little monikers or acronyms thrown around. So tofu, mofu, bofu, if you haven't heard that before, it's kind of a weird way to think about the content, the types of content. So if you add something to your lexicon, your marketing lexicon this trip, this is a good one to add. If you can start thinking about the types of content you produce and say, am I producing tofu right now? Am I producing mofu? Am I producing bofu? And this, at this conference, introducing a new foo, pofu. So to make it even weirder, I've added this sort of section here called pofu for this presentation. And really, what are we looking at here? What might we be measuring if we're looking at tofu, mofu, bofu, pofu? So it's out here at the left, you're just measuring impressions. All right, so it's like, am I getting views on my videos? Are people looking at my blog? Are they socially sharing it? The big mistake that people make is that out here, and we'll get in more detail about what is the types of content that you produce here, but just so you know, sort of spoiler alert, the blog is really, really powerful right there. But it really, really is terrible at this, right? Actual point of sale conversion, not so good. So if you're measuring your blog saying, wow, blog doesn't send any signups at all. It doesn't convert anyone into customers. The problem is you would fire your blog team or your content team or your outsourced team or stop doing it yourself if you're doing it yourself and throw your hands up and say content marketing does not work, right? My blog never gets me any sales. So the problem is you're measuring it in the wrong way and you don't have a process to move somebody from, hey, I've seen you, I know you exist, I'm aware, to how do I get somebody into a trial, into paid users, and then how do I use content to reduce churn? So you really want to start thinking about, am I producing content at the top of the funnel that is designed to drive awareness? Is that something I need right now? I don't know. I don't know your business that well, but ask yourself these questions. Do I need more impressions? Do I just need... Have you ever said to yourself, I have this great, awesome product, just no one knows it exists? Anyone ever said that? That's a good indication that you need a top-of-funnel content strategy. But if it's not the problem, right? It's like, I got traffic, people know who I am, people know what we are, I just can't get them to convert. So how can you get people in this kind of business? Most of you are probably measuring trials in the middle of the funnel. Like, how do I get somebody to just try it? Just get me a trial. Then how do I convert people into paid users? And then once I've done that, if you feel like your job's done, you're wrong. It's time to use content to reduce churn. And we're going to show lots of examples of all that. So let's look at an example. This is one of my favorite companies. We use them at Digital Marketer. I'll explain what they do just so you have some context. They're called õfficevibe. Super cool app. So we have about 60 people, 50, 60 people in the office at Digital Marketer, and we want to know what the vibe is in the office. Like, are people feeling good? Are people mad at the management? Do they not like the decision that we made here? And so what the app does essentially is it sends them an email. It sends all of us an email every Friday and says, it might ask a question like, do you understand the core values of your company? And you might say, and it has like a scale, like that you could say, oh, I absolutely understand the core values and the mission of our company and all these things. And then you click on it, and then it asks you some more questions, like 4 or 5 questions, super fast, just to get the vibe of the office. And then all of that gets sent to us as a management team to kind of take the pulse of the office. So super cool app. super awesome content marketers. Okay, these people are super, super awesome content marketers. So we're going to look at, I'm going to unpack a lot of what OfficeVibe is doing in this deck, but I'm also going to show you some spots where it's like, should be doing better here, and show you some things that I would recommend that they do. But a lot of what they're doing, you can just straight up rip off what they're doing, right? Just like look at how they're handling their content strategy and sort of apply it to what you're doing. So at the top of the funnel, remember, what are we measuring here? We just need awareness. Like we just need people to know that OfficeVibe exists. So what we want to start thinking about is, what sort of state of mind are humans in, right? Because you might be selling B2B, you might be selling B2C. We're all selling human to human, H to H, right? So you got to get into the mind of that customer of yours, that prospect. So at the tofu stage, it might be something like this, where somebody says, you know what? How do I set up an employee feedback program? Right? That's a good prospect at the top of the funnel for this business, OfficeVibe. How do I set up an employee feedback program? This kind of a query could end up as a Google search. It could end up as something that somebody would ask at a conference like this, like you'd be standing next to somebody and be like, do you know how to set up an employee feedback program? So what you're looking at here is an actual possible prospect with an intent. And I'm going to talk more about that important word in content marketing, intent, really in marketing in general, intent. But let's move to the middle of the funnel where this guy has sort of evolved, right? This guy has moved along and he's saying now, so he knows OfficeVibe now exists. Remember, he's in the middle of the funnel. He's evaluating now. How does OfficeVibe compare to TinyPulse, a competitor? Right? So in the middle of the funnel, what are we looking to do? How are we looking to use content to move them forward? We need to satisfy intent that is of an evaluative nature, right? This guy is evaluating the difference between OfficeVibe and the competitor TinyPulse. Bottom of funnel, at the point of sale, what are we looking to do here? We're looking to convert, right? We're looking to, it's almost equivalent to standing in the grocery store looking at all the toothpaste, and you're about ready to grab one of the brands, right? You're at the point of sale. What kind of content does OfficeVibe need here? What kind of intent does your customer have at that bottom of the funnel, like right before they're about to purchase? Super important time, standing there with their wallet out, like gonna choose between all the different things that they have just evaluated. And then they have a question, like at the last second, like, I wonder if OfficeVibe integrates with Slack. Like, because if it doesn't, I'm going to go with TinyPulse. And so you want to anticipate intent at all of these stages of the funnel. You can see that at the bottom of the funnel, this guy's hot. He's ready. He wants to buy. He's going to buy. He's just either going to choose you or TinyPulse at this stage, right? He's done his research. Now, a lot of companies, and I think software companies are actually the best at this, is understanding just how important it is to retain the customers that you have. But are you using content at that post-funnel stage, the POFU stage, if you start thinking about, am I building tofu, mofu, bofu, or pofu? So if we look at the post-funnel content, this guy's got issues with using the product now, right? And your content has to be there at all times, 24/7, allowing the guy to now move through what you would call the consumption stage, right? Where he's using the product, getting success, getting value. So a query here might be something like, how do I use that engagement report in OfficeVibe? Like, I can't even understand this report. So if you take nothing from my presentation at all, please take away that content marketing is not blogging. Blogging is really good at the top of the funnel, but it's really bad at other stages, right? It's not necessarily, or at least the way we think about what a blog is, so creating articles and videos and things, usually is a very, very good top of funnel activity, but really bad at all these other stages. And I'm going to give you another spoiler alert here is it's usually better to start here or here, okay? Forget this big old time vampire up here. Now, That's coming from a guy who loves blogs, loves top-of-funnel content, but why pour more awareness into a leaky bucket, right? Fix your content strategy down here and then just go nuts up here because you've got this all optimized. You've got content at the bottom of the funnel that supports conversion. You've got content at the post funnel that supports and keeps those people from churning out. So, what is the second sort of characteristic of perfect content marketing? The second characteristic is it is intent-based. So I use that word a couple times already, but I'm going to further define this because I really want you guys to start thinking about the intent of your customers. It's different than understanding your customer's avatar. Like a lot of people talk about that. I think that's important. You know their demographics and all of these things. This is more about their psychographics. Like, how do they think? It doesn't matter if they're thinking this when they're 30 years old or 80 years old, or if they're a man, they're female, they live in San Francisco, live in New York, live in London. Doesn't matter. If you can start figuring out different buckets of intent that would be a perfect fit for your business and your app, you're on to something, and you can start to build your content strategy around that. So let's start unpacking what I mean by that. So let's look at intent at the top of the funnel. Again, we got this guy here. How do I set up an employee feedback program? That's intent at the top of the funnel. This guy's not ready to buy. So if you're calling this guy after he shows this intent, like if you're, like if you ever opted into something at Marketo or like Salesforce or something, and like 2 minutes later your phone rings, it's like, man, I just wanted an ebook. It's like I didn't actually take a blood oath. And then they throw like marketing automation software because they are Marketo, obviously. So like nothing against Marketo. I love their marketing, but man, are they aggressive? And they are showing some super aggressive tendencies towards somebody who's really pretty high up in the funnel. But let's look at what intent might look like from a different human being completely, right? Different customer, different intent bucket. This person wants to know how to set up an employee recognition program. So it's a different use of OfficeVibe. Same area of the funnel, pretty high up in the top of the funnel. Not super hot and ready to buy, but this person is different from this person. This person wants to set up an employee feedback program so the employee can give feedback. This person wants to set up a recognition program so that they can start to recognize people that are doing cool stuff, like give awards and stuff like that. Two things that OfficeVibe does, but different intent and needs different content to satisfy that intent at the top of the funnel. Every one of you guys I talked to yesterday, my app does this, or my software does this, and I'd be like, well, who's that for? And it's like, well, it does this for this group of people, but it also kind of does this for this group of people, and there's different reasons people come to us for that. Can you figure out, I'm guessing right now you're thinking, I know what those reasons are. I know what those reasons are. And I could build a piece, even if it's just one piece, whether it's a video or an article or something like that, at the top of the funnel that would cause somebody to go like this, like, I have that problem, or I'm interested in that. I was talking to a guy yesterday who does stuff with caterers. And it's like, how do you get a caterer to raise their hand and say, I'm a caterer? People will tell you what they're interested in simply by going and reading an article. And we're going to get to why that's so powerful in just a second. But in the middle of the funnel, if we go past, let's go past here. So here's a third intent that someone might have at the top of the funnel. So this is a completely different guy, same group, same grouping of content, top of funnel awareness style stuff. So how can I become a better leader? So OfficeVibe does a lot of stuff around just making people better leaders because they know that the leader is the one that they must reach to sell their product. So let's look at some intent in the middle and in the bottom of the funnel. So here, does OfficeVibe work on mobile devices? Okay, this is a different intent. This person's showing more intent to buy than the prior people at the top of the funnel. You agree with that? Does it work on a mobile device? Isn't that a different question than how do I set up an employee recognition program? This person is now asking a branded question about your application. Does it work well on mobile, right? And if there's no content there, they don't know. They just walk away. They're just like, I don't know if it works on mobile. That's a question mark in my head because there's no content to satisfy that intent. So how about this one here at the bottom of the funnel? Who else has used OfficeVibe and had success? Like, I don't want to be the first one on the dance floor. Like, OfficeVibe, like, who else uses OfficeVibe? So a social proof style question here at the bottom of the funnel. Like, right before I buy it, it's like, does anybody else use this? Like, anybody else using this? So if you don't have content here that shows who's using your software, who else is using it, and to quiet or satisfy that intent, you just lowered your conversion rate, didn't you? You didn't satisfy that query right there in the person's head. Your conversion rate went down. So how about intent after the purchase? How do I change the default language from English to Spanish in OfficeVibe? If you don't satisfy that query, that intent, this person could churn on you. They're like, well, now I got 12 people in the office that speak Spanish, and they can't understand what's going on in OfficeVibe. And so I might pay for this for another couple of months on accident, but eventually I'm going to cancel, right? Because I never figured out how to do this. It's not in an easy way, right? I got to call customer service to figure it out or something like that. If you use content, they can access that 24 hours a day, and you create a good, solid, support knowledge base around your application, you're going to reduce churn. It's not hard. None of this is really that crazy or rocket science. I think what you're probably starting to think right now is, no, it's not rocket science. It just takes a lot of time. And I tell you what, you're right. It does. It takes time. It takes energy to get your content marketing sort of shit in a pile, right? It takes a lot of energy to do that. And that's why I think so few people really do it right. But as we get towards the end here, I'm going to show you some sort of quick start stuff where it's like, here, start here, right? And I'll tell you that before I get to that, the big tip here is that the low-hanging fruit is in the bottom of the funnel, right? Don't start way, way up at the top. So I've said that before. I'll say it again because it's so important to reduce churn and to close deals, right? Now, if you're at brand new startup, which I think this is the growth edition of MicroConf, so probably most of you, like Mike was saying earlier, are already moving. I stand behind that statement 100%. Now, if I was talking to startup, like complete starters, and they have zero awareness, maybe you do start with some awareness stuff. But for those of you that have existing customers and existing awareness in the marketplace, people are Googling your service, comparing you to other people, start closest to the money. Start as close to that money as you can with your content. So, number 3, the third characteristic of perfect content marketing is that it is driven by assets. Assets. And what is an asset? So, have you ever thought about a blog post on your site being an asset to the company? You should. You should be trying to hit the ball every single time you produce something. Or what are you doing? Like, why are you wasting your time writing this thing? So, at this point, I like to make a distinction between two different types of companies that do content at the top of the funnel, blog stuff. The publisher, the company that that is trying to compete with Men's Health Magazine or the Huffington Post. So, Huffington Post is probably putting out 4 to 6, 8 articles a day. Right? Are you going to compete with that? Right? If you're are you going to try to compete with menshealth.com? If you're in the have some fitness app or something like that? No. Unless you are. Like, if you're going to do that, then do it. Like, become a publisher. But if you're not, you still need content at the top of the funnel. So Ezra's over here, great, unbelievable marketer. But how many pieces of content do you use to run Boom? Yeah, I mean at the top of the funnel. 1. Okay, he's 1 badass article at the top of the funnel that he buys traffic to. And I'm sure you'll talk about some of this stuff tomorrow. I'm not sure you're talking about Boom tomorrow. But what I'm saying is either choose to be a publisher or take yourself off that hook, okay, that you have to be producing 3 times a week a blog post or a podcast or an article or something like that. You either be a publisher or you're not, right? So you don't have to be a publisher. You don't have to be creating 10, 15 pieces, but you do need assets. Like he has that one piece. It's a money piece, right? It's the one piece he drives his traffic into to warm that traffic up with some really nice top-of-funnel awareness style content. He doesn't try to become a publisher. He just publishes the one piece, and then if he wears that thing out, he'll go out and create something else, right? So if he goes and runs ads to it and he fatigues the article, he might switch it out and maybe bring it back or something like that. So I know we've talked about this a number of times. So asset-driven, you must have these assets. You really can't go into this game and try to play this game without something at the top of the funnel, without really something at the bottom. And for you guys, I would say post-funnel, right? You really need these pieces in place. So let's talk about what we mean by that. Take this, again, go back to this intent at the top of the funnel. How do I set up an employee feedback program? Super obvious intent for OfficeVibe. Super obvious intent, but do you have a piece in place? It's like, oh, of course that's something that our people are wondering, but do I actually have an asset in place like this one here? This is a amazing piece of content called Employee Feedback 101. Very well done, very well written, very exhaustive look at employee feedback, and they have one piece. One piece is all they need on that intent. And they drive all that traffic into that piece. So some wondering at the top of the funnel, like, how do I set up an employee feedback program? So this isn't just some random blog post. This is a really, I wouldn't even call it a blog post. I would call it, almost a white paper on employee feedback and what it is. Let's move to the middle of the funnel. How does OfficeVibe compare to Tiny Pulse, a competitor? Will they have an asset for this intent? Are they that awesome that they would have something on that? They actually do. And they can't rank for it. They're not getting ranked for it. So what do? They just go out and buy a super branded Google ad that just owns that top result. So that's an ad there that you're looking at, OfficeVibe versus Tiny Pulse. And when you go to that page, you're going to find a comparison between the two. It's a money page. It's worth 100 random blog posts that you flipped against the wall, that page. With 100 of those, 1,000 of those. Who knows how many, right? Until you actually measure. So let's look at, here's a quick tip on this, right? So anybody that has an existing application in the market, or really any existing brand at all, is one of the fastest ways to figure out if this is worth your time in the middle of the funnel is just to Google your own brand and type the word verse next to it. Look at close.io. I know they've done some stuff here, and I'm not sure if they're here today, but look at what old Google Suggest is saying. Like, in the middle of the funnel, there is enough demand for close.io versus Salesforce versus Pipedrive versus HubSpot versus Base CRM versus RelateIQ. So what comes up when you type that about your brand? Right? If something comes up, but you need it. You need an asset there. Because that person is typing that in is worth 100 people trying to figure out how to set up an employee feedback program. They're not even close to being as hot as that person is. They're comparing you against your competitor. You want that traffic? Just create the asset. It's a branded asset, so create the page. At the bottom of the funnel, how about who else has used OfficeVibe and had success? Is this on your site? Can I find this? Do you satisfy this intent? Well, OfficeVibe does. They do a pretty good job. They could do better, I think, but they have a bunch of logos, right? You've seen this exact setup they're probably already on your site. Look at Salesforce. So Salesforce, one of the best things Salesforce does, and I learned so much from being on that content team, is middle and bottom of funnel stuff, customer stories. Who else is using Salesforce? Are they like me, and can they get similar results? And these are pretty, I bet you there were 20-something people on the team that created these stories. They were in the PR department, constantly tracking down companies like Yeti here, super hot company that is using Salesforce, and telling that story. And then just putting it out there, right? Letting people choose at the bottom of the funnel, like, oh, tons of social proof. Like, oh, I sell a similar product to what Yeti sells. Yeti's having tremendous success. Maybe I'll have tremendous success. Great piece at the bottom of the funnel. The customer story is super powerful, and it doesn't need to be super highly produced. It could be text, or it could just be an iPhone video that people are taking that are just doing a testimonial, but social proof at the bottom of the funnel is super powerful content. And a great initiative for you if you're going to decide, like, we're going to do content marketing and we're going to start at the bottom of the funnel at the conversion stage. A great way to start that is just to say, all right, let's send emails to the best customers we have and start drumming up some customer stories. I want to start getting these out on Facebook. I want to start getting these out everywhere. So customer story at the bottom of the funnel. But how about this one? How do I change the default language from English to Spanish in OfficeVibe? Will OfficeVibe satisfy this intent post-funnel, post-purchase? You know the answer. Of course they will. So they have a page in their knowledge base about language preferences. It's amazing how many apps don't have this kind of stuff where they just need to anticipate the intent of the customer, or just go and talk to your customer service, or open up Zendesk or whatever you're using and look at what people are asking and create pages at the post-funnel that help these people, because it reduces churn. If for no other reason, you don't want them to be frustrated, of course, like you love your customers. But if you want your business to succeed and you want to reduce that churn level, get out there and create these pages. A lot of times you can have the engineers create those. So at Crazy Egg, I actually think my better contribution to Crazy Egg was not at the top of the funnel, but at the post-funnel creation of support and working on getting the engineers to create the answers to all the questions that we knew our customers had, beginning with the most important thing, which a lot of you probably have this problem, is how do I even install the damn thing? I just bought your application. How do I put it on a Drupal site? You know, people still use Drupal. How do I put it on Joomla? How do I put it on WordPress? How do I put it on Shopify? How do I put it, so a lot of you, that's the very first thing. If you got a post-purchase and I can't even install the dang thing, and I can't find any content about it, now I'm frustrated and very likely to churn or refund or charge back. Things we love, right? Churn and refunds and chargebacks, oh my. So assets needed change as you move through the funnel. You need different types of assets as you move through the funnel because intent changes as your prospects are moving through the funnel. Think about that. The assets you need change because the intent changes. I can't keep showing you blog posts. You're ready to buy this thing. Like, what am I giving you instead of, here's another blog post about something super awareness-centric and top of funnel. It's like, dude, like, I want to buy the product. Like, what can you give me about that? Well, you want another blog post? Or you want another article? You want another podcast? Right? So everything has its place. Number 4 is one that people forget to apply, but you really need to be considering Ascension. And what do we mean by Ascension? At Digital Marketer, we use this term a lot. How do we ascend somebody, ascend the relationship, right? So I just met you, I shook hands, let's say I walk into a bar, right, and I'm like, I shake someone's hand. Think about how a normal dating relationship forms, right? You go from, like my wife and I at some point didn't know each other, and now we have children together. How did that happen? You ever think of that? Especially looking at me and then looking at her. So you're probably really wondering. So how does that happen? It happens through a normal progression of a relationship. And that's why you need to learn you need to understand that you need content that's a shaken, how do you do? You need content that's more of a let's grab coffee or a first date. right? You need content that progresses the relationship. So your content has to be Ascension focused. It has to have teeth. If your content is a blog post with no teeth in it, most people are reading what you have. Most people are not reading it, okay? And then the people that do read it, they don't even know what you do because you don't make calls to action in your content. You don't advertise in your own content, which is really the power of that awareness type content in the first place. Failure to provide an appropriate call to action is not just bad marketing. It's terrible marketing, but it's also bad UX. It's a horrible user experience if I am ready to go to the next stage and you won't show me how. So I was we were looking at painting a room in our house. I was on this thing, I was looking at a tool that was showing me all the different paint colors that I think it was Home Depot or something had. And once I selected the paint color, I couldn't buy it. I was like, where's the button that lets me just buy this paint and move on with my life? It's horrible UX. And it really should be considered at every stage, what do you want the person to do next? Ask them to do that. That's a call to action. Look at this situation here. Go back to our guy. How do I set up an employee feedback program? This dude's way up at the top of the funnel. Way up at the top of the funnel. You'd rather have 100 people comparing your app to, you'd rather have one person, comparing you to your competitor than 100 of these guys. But how do we move that person to the next step? Because that's exactly what you're doing at the top of the funnel. Awareness is a volume game. It's about throwing a lot of awareness at the top of the funnel and then learning to ascend some percentage of those people to the middle. So how do we do that? Look at what OfficeVibe does. In their super top of funnel piece about employee feedback 101, they make a simple call to action. Do you want this in a PDF form, I think is with call to action in this one. Want to save this guide for later? You hit that button, it's going to pop an opt-in, and now I got your email address. Okay, so it's an opt-in from that top of funnel piece that's now going to allow me to have an email address where I can do some nurture. Super, super smart right there. So who else has used OfficeVibe and had success? What should be the next thing for that intent right there? Should we give this person a podcast next? Like, oh, you want to know who else is using the app? How about you go go read a blog post? That's going back in the relationship. The next step for this person is a trial, so or some kind of an opt-in, right? So I don't know what OfficeVibe chose to do here. I'm having a hard time seeing, but subscribe. Okay, so they're going for an opt-in right there. But you got to be going for something. What are you moving them to next? How do I change the default language from English to Spanish in OfficeVibe? Your post-funnel folks. What do you want them to do next? If they're reading the knowledge base, what's the next step in that relationship? You don't want them to churn, remember? So they're going to read that thing. If it wasn't helpful, you need to give them that next step, which is send us a support ticket. All right, so send us a ticket so that you're not just frustrated. If that didn't help you, you just read that thing, now submit a support ticket. So what you want to be doing is removing friction. What is the next thing they should do based on what their behavior is right now? Okay, so they're reading something about employee feedback. How about we try to make a free trial offer there? They're reading something about employee feedback. How about we try to go for an opt-in there and measure that stuff, right? This is how you put teeth into your content marketing. So you include calls to action. The fifth one, this is starting to get increasingly more tactical, I think, when we get to segmented. So what do we know about these people? What do we know about people that visited that page? 7 mistakes managers make when giving annual performance reviews. They also visited this page. 5 mistakes made in performance reviews. And or they visited this page. 10 performance review tips you're probably neglecting. What do we know about that person? Not a trick question. They are doing performance reviews or thinking about it. Okay, so first thing you do is you segment. You understand what, no matter whether they visit one or all three of these posts, what do we know about them and what do we want them to do next? This is how you sound out, like, how am I going to move somebody from here to here to here? So the first thing you do is you make a relevant offer inside that content, whatever that post was. 7 mistakes managers make when giving annual performance reviews, just like OfficeVibe does here. So here's 7 mistakes managers make when giving annual performance reviews. I know you're doing performance reviews, unless you just like to read about stuff like this, okay, which no one does. So you can see here, free bonus download right there. CTA, nice and relevant, right there inside the blog post. Here's the problem. You're going to see a big whopping 0.5%, all the way up to 20%, which is rare. I've seen it as high as 20% take rate on that offer right there inside the content. Has 100% to do with how congruent the offer is to the content itself. So if it was completely, I'm reading something about Thai food and you make me an offer about making a hamburger or something, that's a terrible congruency. But the higher, more congruent something is, the higher that take rate's going to be, but it's still not that great. We see anywhere between 3 and 5% take rate on an offer embedded in a piece of content like this. But here's where content marketing gets crazy. And this is, like I said, getting more and more tactical, because the second step in this is, I know what you're interested in. You're interested in conducting better performance reviews. I know that. I've now segmented you, and I am going to now retarget you. So retargeting is probably the biggest thing that's happened in digital marketing since I've been in the game. So there's been some pretty big things that have happened, but this is the most significant thing that's happened in a long time. This stuff is really, really powerful, especially when you combine it with good content. So I segment you, but I know what you're interested in, okay, because of what you're reading. People don't spend time with things that they're not interested in. So you read the article. Now I'm going to retarget you. So this is what this looks like. Pick a traffic source. I don't care what it is. Social media, email marketing, YouTube ads, AdWords, Facebook ads, I don't care what it is. Buy traffic into a piece of content. Buy that traffic. Buy it. You say, well, you can buy clicks into a blog post? Yes. We do it all day long. Okay, I'm recommending you try this. Okay, so buy clicks into a piece of content. What has that done for you right there? First of all, they've seen your brand. They're warmer than they were before they did the click. Second, they're segmented. You know what they're, as long as you built the piece of content properly and know what to talk to them about next, they are now segmented. So they are both warmer than they used to be, and they are now segmented. The next step, you're going to use something like Facebook Ads Network or Google Ads Network, or where all the different places you can set up a retarget. I recommend you start with Facebook. It's the easiest place to start. They make it super easy to drop a cookie on that person's machine. It's really called a pixel. I don't know the difference, but between a cookie and a pixel. But then, you guys do, though. I heard some snickers like, guy's dumb. Then they go back to Facebook. So they read your article, they got the cookie. 6 hours later, they're there on Facebook. Now, you, based on their behavior before, they were on this post, they were segmented, they now know, maybe don't know your brand super well, but at least they've been on your site, seen your logo, things like that. You give them an ad, back into a more direct response offer. Ask them to do something that takes it to the next level. An Ascension path like opt in to get this ebook. And now you've got a lead, or some percentage of those people are going to convert to leads. And maybe your funnel ends with a phone call. They opt in, you call. right? I know that's how, again, Marketo's works, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe it sets off another set of email communications. Maybe it triggers new retargeting ads, or maybe it does all of the above. But it starts with understanding what are the different intents of your customer, how to build a piece of content that would get them to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm interested in running performance reviews. Okay, how about I buy the traffic into that post, drop a cookie, and then retarget with the proper direct response style offer, right? So what I mean by direct response is, hey, this ad is really just designed to get you over to this squeeze page and opt in for another piece of content here. You might go into a webinar. You might go into a live event like this one. Who knows what you do, but you need to be building, using a whiteboard. I love using a whiteboard for this kind of stuff, because I'll tell you, this is what most people think is the problem, the traffic. There is no such thing as a traffic problem on the internet. There is so much traffic out there, it's sick. You just need to write a check for it, okay? And you need to know that when you do send that click, what are you going to do with it? Because so many people just buy clicks or they don't buy clicks or whatever because they're just going to drop it on the homepage, or they're going to drop it. They're going to go way ahead in the relationship, like skip from, hey, how you doing, to, hey, let's get married, with an offer like, well, here, buy my $99 a month thing, right? Where it's way too early in the relationship. This is a really good-looking funnel. Let's look at one from Salesforce. This is one they use all day long to grow this business. This is an acquisition funnel that Salesforce uses all day long. Buy traffic into a blog post about whatever. This one's about choosing a CRM. Cookie. Go to Facebook. Give me an ad that's going to go for the opt-in. So I don't know what that says because I can't see. But it's going to send you into a squeeze page. If you fill out that form, they're going to call you. Every day, all day long, that's the funnel. And it's just one of many different types of funnels they have running. But that funnel has been running. You've seen them. You've seen those ads. So you need an acquisition funnel. That's what you need. You need to figure out, how am I going to use content to segment, buy the traffic in, or don't. If you're going to try to become an SEO god and bring in tons of free traffic, that's great. Because when you buy this traffic, you do need to pay for this click. Like if you buy Facebook ads into this post, you're going to pay for that click. You're not going to pay a lot for it these days. It's getting more expensive. But you'll pay less than you would if you tried to buy a Facebook ad into this page, especially if no one knows who you are that you're advertising to. And that gets into some things like relevance scores and stuff like that. The simplest funnel right here for an app, buy the traffic, segment at the piece of top of funnel content. At this stage, somebody can walk away and go, I had a really great relationship or experience with that brand. It was pretty nice. I read a really awesome piece of content, or I watched a really cool video. No harm, no foul, right? I'm going to retarget you, and you probably aren't going to do anything, but some percentage will. What is that percentage? It's a simple spreadsheet that you need to keep to figure out what happens from step to step. The last of these perfect content marketing characteristics is that that perfect content marketing is cross-channel. Don't think that this is just about your blog or your podcast or anything like that. I go on, I'm going to breeze right through number 6 here to get to some execution stuff. And we're only through 5 minutes left here, but I went on YouTube. Here's a place where OfficeVibe's not doing very well. No demo for their product on YouTube. That's not a good use of channels, okay? So I go on YouTube, type in OfficeVibe demo, and I find everybody except OfficeVibe showing me the demo of their product. Somebody looking for a demo super deep in the funnel, like way, way deep in there at the bottom of the funnel, looking to buy. They want to see how it works. They want to sort of watch somebody use it, and they're not there. Fortunately for them, most of their customers that review and give a demo are pretty happy with the product and do a pretty good job, but why not build the official Office Vibe demonstration and put it on YouTube. So how to execute this stuff. This is where I really want to get to. Here's how to get started with content marketing. You want to create what I call a content campaign plan. Okay, so this is how you end up hitting the ball more often than missing. It looks like this. I'm going to give you a bit.ly. If you have a computer, you can even access it right now. It just goes straight to a Google Doc. bit.ly/content-campaign-template. That will open up a Google Doc. So I'll leave that up for just a second. This is a very, very cool doc that we use to plan content. And it's bit.ly/content-campaign-template. It looks like this. If you're looking at it right now on your screen, across the top we have different intents that people might have for using your application. Across the top up here. So in my case, for Office Vibe, it's I want to conduct a performance review, I want to onboard employees, or I want to improve leadership skills. Then along the left side here, you have the different stages: aware, evaluate, convert, and commit. What assets now need to be built for each intent at each stage of the funnel? So then we start brainstorming. This is the fun part, actually, for a content person like myself who likes to create creative stuff. Like, what should we build for somebody that is interested in the product because they want to do more onboarding? What should we build for them at the awareness stage? Let's brainstorm some ideas. So you come up with this idea. So for us, for Office Vibe here, they have asset B, which is then described down here in a little more detail. So it's an employee onboarding guide. Okay, and it's going to live on the blog. You can see the channels are there. And then you start to do things like assign a writer or someone to create the piece and things like that. So this is how we plan content at Digital Marketer and across all the businesses that we own, is we look at the intent, not so much the demographics as much as the sort of psychographics. Like, why would somebody want this thing that we have? And then we start to say, okay, we know we can't get them to buy until they're first aware. We can't get them to buy until they're first evaluate. So we need assets at all these stages. If you go to that template, you can use it. A lot of people, actually I built this one sort of new for this event only and used the Office Vibe example. So there really shouldn't be anybody else in this one except you guys. This is the only place I've ever shared this version of this template. But you can see there are two tabs at the bottom. One of them is the example, which is this that you're seeing on here and probably not seeing very well on here. But and then the other one's just the template that you can use. But I urge you to start at the bottom of the funnel. Like, okay, let's take somebody that wants to use the product to onboard employees. What should we be building at the convert stage down at the bottom of the funnel? Or maybe start post-funnel if you have a churn issue. All right, so once again, there's your bit.ly/content-campaign-template. And I thank you so much for your attention today. Thank you.
Cool, awesome presentation. Thanks very much. Can you give us example sort of drop-offs that we should aim for in that SaaS funnel you example? So should we start off with 1,000 people seeing the blog post and then 100 people getting retargeted and signing up?
This is a great question, like conversion rates on average. So if we back up, I don't know if I'll be able to back all the way up. Maybe Xander can back me all the way up to the sort of aware interest all the way at the start of the presentation. But for us, what we see, and this can vary dramatically, but to generate leads, we're looking at 50 to 60% conversion rate on something like a webinar registration page or a lead magnet, what we call a lead magnet at Digital Marketer. I know a lot of people call this a lead magnet, which is a really specific, nice, very valuable piece of content traded in exchange for someone's contact information. We're looking for anywhere from 40 to 60%. Usually the funnel will work as low as 30%, as long as the back end of it is doing well, right, and things in the back. But for webinars and things at the very top of the funnel, our application, and I'm sure you guys would be way more qualified. I would love to just instantly have a average conversion from trial to full pay. But for us, we're at 60%, and we don't know if that's really fantastic or great. With this app we have called True Conversion, where do you think that it falls on that range, Rob? Like from free trial to full pay.
Free trial to full pay to the credit card up front, or no?
Yeah.
Credit card up front, I would want to be between 40 and 60%.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we're at. So, those are pretty dang good conversion rates. If you're driving traffic, especially if it's qualified traffic that's raised its hand, it's been on your looked at your content. We look for, if we're just looking to generate leads, not necessarily looking for trials, right? We're looking for leads. They didn't set up a free trial. They just set up and said, I want this ebook, or I want this webinar, or I want this whatever. We're looking for 40 to 60% there. We can see as low as 30. I've seen as high as 70%. 7 out of 10 people that you put on a page want what you have. It really comes down to the offer, right? Like, how good is the thing? And then, of course, the design. That's why, apps like Lead Pages are so important, that build beautiful, trusted landing pages that know to convert. So, if you don't have a good landing page, use software, right? Like, it's not hard. You don't need to. A lot of you guys could build beautiful pages yourselves, but we use software, even though we have the capability. We have 7 developers. We could build custom pages all day long. We use apps like Lead Pages or, any of the number of sites like that to build pages. But if your offer's good and your copy is compelling, okay? So that's why I was so excited to see Joanna Wiebe here, because she writes so much about writing compelling copy. If you want to see really well-designed squeeze pages, landing pages with great copy on them, just go jump around on copyhackers.com and see the kinds of pages that she's building. And the copy is so important. It's the offer and then how you describe that offer that's going to be, most of the battle, as long as you're using a well-designed page, using something like Lead Pages.
Sean McCabe here. Thanks very much for your talk, Russ. I got a lot out of it. Definitely a lot of aha moments, especially starting at the bottom, building up, starting closest to the money. That was really good. You mentioned for someone who's middle of funnel, giving a next step of like a free trial. Let's say you don't have a trial. What would you recommend as the next step? Is there something between someone who's middle of funnel and purchase if you don't have a free trial option?
What are you selling?
It's a membership. So the example you gave, the $99 a month, that's exactly what it is. Is it too quick to go straight to that?
So membership's difficult to sell to cold traffic or even warm traffic. It's very difficult to sell continuity, and that's why so many application companies start out with the free trial, because it's like zero skin in the game. I'll get your credit card, but we're not going to bill you for 14 days. But in a membership situation, which we are very good at digital marketing, we've tested a lot of different types of ways to sell membership. And if it's information that you're selling inside of that site, the best way to do it, but here's the problem with selling membership to an information site, is you go up to somebody and you go, hey, we've got this thing, and it's awesome. And it's like, well, what is it? It's like, it's everything. It's everything that you need to do X, like grow tomatoes or build a business or whatever, and it's not specific. Non-specificity is one of the biggest sins of describing something you want to sell, right? You need to be able to be specific about what it is that you're selling. So what the best way that we've found to sell membership in that way, you go into the greater pool, right? Like you get this thing, like, what's in there? Everything's in there. And it's like, well, that doesn't tell me much. Like, it's like everything's there. You splinter, we call splinter. You splinter a piece out onto the front and you sell it for a ridiculous, you're not looking to become profitable off of that, right? So we sell that kind of stuff for $7, right? And it's one time, $7, super low commitment, but does convert them into a client. And then we say, hey, did you like this thing? Yeah, I loved it. It was great. Obviously, I have a great product. You say, do you want a whole bunch more of stuff like that? It's in the membership. So it's really hard to describe to somebody that you just have this giant bucket full of awesome stuff. Very non-specific, very difficult to convert people. Pull something very specific out, especially something you can use to target people if you're buying traffic, like something that would, this is something I can write specific ad copy and stuff like that around. And I actually think maybe Joanna's talk tomorrow is going to touch on some of this specificity stuff that's so important in copy. Yeah.
Thanks again, Russ. Russ is going to be around for the next day or two, so feel free to approach him at lunch and in the evenings if you have more questions for him. Another round of applause.
Thank you. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.